Yeah. Don't talk to Peter like that.
Do crumb.
I don't know if I can. I don't know how I do it. Hey, I'm Crumb. I didn't really get into my Crumb. Evidence. Sabrina.
How do you like your electric toothbrush? I just saw it in the bathroom.
Honestly, it's been a huge change.
It's a game changer, right?
It's a huge game changer. And I know they have different ones too, because that one just vibrates.
Yeah.
But they have the ones that, that rotates and stuff, which I've never tried. And I've always been a little, sorry, I'm taking over. No. Honestly, with vibrating toothbrushes, my teeth have always been like a little sensitive, and I was very skeptical about it at first, but then you get used to it.
You start light.
And then you're like, okay. And then it's nothing now. You're like, yeah,
when I first used that toothbrush, well, just to be fair, we're not using the same bristles, but that was my first electric toothbrush. And then when I put it on my teeth for the first time, I underestimated the power of it. And I have sensitive teeth. And it was a shock to the system.
It was kind of like,
I had to back off, put on even the low setting on that one's strong.
It is.
I have a rotating one now, but it's not as powerful as that one is, but
not as aggressive.
No, definitely not. That's the most aggressive toothbrush I've ever used.
I actually Bree wanted to buy one.
Nice.
What I really enjoy is the timer.
That's nice.
Settings. So you're like, all right, this, and stops. You're like, all right, swap. Don't do that.
Yeah,
it's nice, and then you can just do it again if you really want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Double clean. The next thing I got to look into though is the water flosser.
Oh, the water pick.
Yeah,
you gotta be careful with that because you have to practice with it. Because I think I messed up my gums once. I did mess up my gums once. I freaking shot it and I missed the tooth and it hit the gum and then it made a canker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's like a power washer or something.
It is.
Like a mini one.
It's like a fine jet of water. So it's very precise. It's like if you took a pencil and you went like this. It doesn't hurt.
Right.
But I guess there's different settings on that too.
I was going to ask that. There's like speed settings.
There are, yeah.
Pressure settings.
There's different settings like pulse. But I blew dog shit off the bottom of my shoes with it. So it's worth having one anyway.
Well, you mentioned cleaning your bathtub with it too.
Yes, it's great. FYI, definitely use a water pick for everything also. Change out the tips. I mean, I wouldn't put the tip to what I'm shooting anyway. Wait, no, I mean, we're gonna cut that out. But you know what I'm saying?
Actually, you know what? This is what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about when you first had your approach into, I guess it would be considered an indie movie scene, right? When you were going into the Uncanny Harbor.
What's that?
The Uncanny Harbor.
The Uncanny Valley.
Yes. And when you were jumping into that, how'd you feel when that was like first approach on you? I'm assuming you weren't just like, I fucking got this.
No. Well, with anything, I know that I can do it. And it's just a matter of like, all right, this is going to be hard. I know that I have it in me to do it. I don't know if it's going to fail or not. But I'm going to do what I can. And then if it goes off the rails, it goes off the rails. So it's just like, it's a matter of just getting in there and doing your best. I had some parallels, like you and I both have been involved with like video and just filmmaking, kind of messing around with cameras. And we've always had fun telling stories visually. And we both have a musician background. We both come from different bands. So we were in a band years ago together too. Does metalcore, I guess you could call it, right? Yeah, it was metalcore back then.
Yeah, it was metal, not as metalcore, but
yeah.
We were going down an interesting route for sure.
It was the height of Killswitch Engage's like takeoff. Basically, It was when they were at the top of the mountain. And then
we actually started getting pretty proggy.
Toward the end. Yeah. Our timing started getting a little like choppier, which was like basically gent. We didn't know it yet at the time.
Oh, if only.
I know. We just didn't know. It was too early.
Yeah. We weren't out in that atmosphere of gent yet.
No. But yeah, you learn. I think you learn things better always when you're interested in it. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have a passion before you realize you have a passion for something.
Yeah.
Because
you just do it.
It's like over time, you just like, you know, you like something and you're just doing it. You don't care if you're getting paid. You don't care for a lot of different things. Obviously, eventually down the road, you try to get paid for doing it because you've been doing it for so long. You're like, well, I'm good at this. I like doing it. I want to get paid. I mean,
I have done it for free.
We've done plenty of free things.
Because it's fun. Because
we enjoy it. We really want to. And it's not only that we enjoy it. It's also just joking a little bit there.
Mucinex is the next sponsor.
So you really not only do you enjoy it, but you want to learn. There's still so much learning. Obviously, with YouTube and other things, there's so much more available than going to a school and learning some standard rule, because there's more flexibility, more creativity when you're like not sitting there in a strict kind of thing. But the whole thing I'm aiming at here is just, I forgot where we were going. It was there and it's gone.
Dude, that's so funny. And then we could splice in another part, like of something you say later. We could just say it. So the thing is, and then just cut to that next the next point. Dude, so we both have the same anxiety, because that's what it is. Like we'll start talking about something. And then all of a sudden you're like watching yourself talk, and then you trip on your own words.
You start thinking about what you're talking about, and then before you know it, you forget what you were just talking about. Yep. And then you're like, well, that's that.
I don't know how much of that is like a product of today's technology and the ADD everyone has because of it, or if that's just a thing that's common. I don't know, but I definitely do it a lot, where I'll be talking and then all of a sudden I just stop, and then I start panicking. I start freaking out in my own head, and I'm like, oh boy.
Because you're like, oh God.
Where was I going with that? Everyone's watching me.
I was talking and I had everything right there, and it's all gone.
Oh, when you're talking to somebody and you're trying to convey the message, but then you start noticing something in their eye, or like you look at something on their lip or whatever it is, like the facial feature that sidetracks you, and then your brain starts thinking about a completely different thing while your mouth is on autopilot, just full steam ahead.
Still going.
Yeah.
And then when you come back,
you're like, what the fuck am I talking about?
Wait, what? Where the fuck? How'd I get out of here?
How'd I get here?
Wait, who the fuck are you?
Who am I? Yeah. I know. Dude, yeah. But how did we get there? The passion. Oh, so yeah,
passion.
So I mean, I always say with anything that I've gotten good at, and I don't know if it's true for everybody, but for me, if you told me to sit down and learn something, I wouldn't have done it. But because I enjoyed it, no one had to tell me, and that's why I got good at it. And when I started drumming when I was like just a ridiculously young age, I don't remember starting. I remember like early points, but I don't remember actually starting. But I can tell you that I never did it because I wanted to get better. I got better as a byproduct of doing it. And I think that was the huge thing. I think there's healthy competition with improving skills and stuff like that. Certain things like martial arts, you need opponents to get better at it. That's just how it works. Mm-hmm. There's certain things like comedy is the same deal. Like stand up, you need to have an audience to get better at it. But with music, not necessarily. It helps. It can help to have mentors and stuff. But I guess that's the people you look up to. Yeah, is what makes you better. But you're not, as far as I'm concerned anyway. Like I've never done it to be the best, and I've never wanted to be like the people I liked. I just liked the music they played, and that made me want to try to play it because it's fun. It was fun to play.
It was challenging.
But I had to be so careful with the challenge part, because if something was too hard, I would get frustrated, and then it would take the fun out of it, and then I wouldn't want to play anymore. And then
it felt like a chore.
But I think the biggest downfall to today, and we didn't have it back then, is the ability to compare yourself to everybody. And social media is really a problem with that, because you can go on Instagram or Facebook or wherever your platform is, and you can see someone who's amazing at their thing. And it can inspire you, but it doesn't really do that for me.
Right. No,
it does the opposite for me.
Push you. Yeah. It's actually come down to that a lot over the past couple of years, because there's algorithms, and all it takes is a small search somewhere, and they find out, and then they're pushing the top. You know what I mean? Like
here's the thing, right?
Like handful of people that are really good at certain things.
Yep.
And then that's all you're seeing, and you're like, well, I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah. And there's something like you just keep looking at it, and you keep liking it, and then they keep showing you what you liked, and then it's like, well, they know that you liked it, but it's not deep enough psychologically for them to know if you actually liked it.
Mhm.
Meaning you might like something on the surface, but it hurts you deeply on a different level. And the algorithm doesn't know how you feel.
Right.
It looks at what you do.
Yeah.
And that's how it works.
Yep.
But it's not the same thing. What you do and how you feel is a lot of the times not the same thing. So I think growing up without that was a huge advantage to us as far as being able to, because
Big time.
I could play drums in the basement alone for hours on end every single day, and no one was there to tell me I wasn't doing it right, or because no one in the household played any instruments. So it's not like I had someone constantly, and I never took lessons because I didn't want somebody to sit there and tell me that I'm doing it wrong. Or
it's like strict in a way.
Yeah.
It could be good for certain people if they want to be on a strict level.
It depends on who you are.
Yeah.
I think, and that goes across the education system, period, is like some people are so book smart and good, and schools are great for them. But a lot of people I know, they're not good in a sit down, learn, open the textbook setting. They're hands-on and they need to go out and learn it. But it's so bad today because of the social media aspect of it. It's like, I want to be there, and look at all, and now you get people getting famous at like 21, millionaires. It's like they're not even developed yet fully.
No.
And they have all the attention, and now they're famous for being famous in a weird way. There's like, and people want that, but they don't even know what that is. Like, being famous isn't necessarily a skill.
Right.
It's just a thing. It's supposed to be a byproduct of something you're good at.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to get famous. Like, if you're
Absolutely.
not doing it for that,
yeah,
you're doing it because you enjoy the thing and you got good at it, and the byproduct is being famous.
Yeah.
I think that's a strength. And then you get your foundation, and you know what it's like to not be famous, and then you have some, you know what I mean, some contrast. So
right.
But I don't know, what the hell are we going with that? It goes back to getting, if you, again, like with anything, same with the video editing and all that stuff. I was making short videos, and you were too. We both have done it in the past, making short little fun things because there was a camera. So I just was playing with it like a toy. That's essentially what it was.
I think I actually started with animations Paint.
How did you do? Flash?
No.
Or,
Windows Movie Maker and Paint.
oh, no kidding.
And I would do image by image. It was stop frame.
Oh man, dude, that's take forever.
And I would sit there for hours doing a fucking 1 minute video.
Wow.
I don't know if I have any more of them floating around. I might. There might be a DVD somewhere or a CD with these shitty videos on there, but Jesus Christ. And then I'd put like audio behind it. Then I started doing it with video. But it was like my cousin, he'd take his Jeep out or something like that, and would just film it, and then I'd like take certain things and I'd put music behind it, and like we did some jackass thing here back with DJ like fucking years ago, and it was funny. We just set up a bunch of like contraptions outside, put up lights, and we just fucking run and jump into a bunch of fucking things, and like it was, I don't know if I have any of those anymore. I lost so many videos, but it was so funny. But that literally, I just kept wanting to do things with video, but it was like,
right.
You just did it.
That's the thing, right? It's like, that's the way to get good at things. I think it's you're not, nowadays we didn't have that like ability to look at people and to be, you could be envious of people that you knew, but you never know as many people as you know online. You can't. It's like impossible unless you're really going and driving to every building and meeting everybody there.
Yeah.
There's no way to know everybody like you used to. You would have 10 people that you knew, like really knew.
Yeah.
And if one of them was really good at the thing that you wanted to do, which I don't think you decide what you want to do. You just naturally, for some weird reason, what makes you want to do things? I don't know. It's weird because everybody's different and it can't really be forced. Like brainwashed into wanting to do something, and like I don't know.
This is what you. I mean, you could be brainwashed into wanting things.
Kind of, yeah, but it's not the same as naturally, truly wanting it.
Yeah, no, that's just something you're kind of born with.
I think so, because you gravitate toward things.
Yeah.
It's like an invisible force that like pulls you like a magnet in. It's kind of weird.
I mean, music in general has been like that in my life.
Creative stuff, I think, is because there are people who are artists. And I love the product they make, but the thought of sitting down and painting anything bores the hell out of me.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
interested.
tried that. I mean, I used to do art. I actually did art. I was always kind of a cross between like doing music, like loving music. I used to go through like I had this random boom box, and I remember I took all my parents' CDs and just sit in the room and just play all the music and just go through it, just play it. I had no idea why. I just wanted to hear.
You don't know why, yeah.
I just wanted to hear all the music. I wanted to hear just everything, and then but then I would draw, and I do a lot of drawing, and then but I got very discouraged with drawing because there's so many great artists,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, this is what I do, and so then I kind of went away from that. I mean, I even skateboarded for a while. I had a passion for skateboarding, but then I started playing guitar, and then that was the end of all that shit.
That's what you knew.
After that, I was like, I'm digging this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
crazy.
I do remember being at a concert, like at a super young age. It's super foggy, the memory of it. But I remember seeing a band. I don't know who it was, but I remember for some reason looking at the drummer more than anybody. And I was like, I want to play drums because it's the loudest thing. And that was it. I'm like, it's loud. I like it.
It's the
loud.
most active thing too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Physically,
sometimes there's someone jumping around and shit, but like
no.
when you're a drummer, there's no choice. Like
Right.
you're fucking moving.
You're
around.
moving, yeah.
It's actually funny because when I was younger too, I used to play drums on buckets. So I always had this rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I always grew up with some form of rhythm. Leads, like lead guitar, stuff like that. Yeah. Vocals. Sometimes I'd remember it. I always remembered the melody, the catch.
That's why you're a rhythm guitar guy.
Yeah, I've always remembered that. But it helps me structurally when I'm creating things, audio-wise, music-wise, because the foundation is generally around the rhythm. Because I mean, you can build around a lead.
No, you're right. You're right.
But when you have a solid rhythm, you can build around that like
Well,
tomorrow.
see, the thing is that more often than not, you don't feel what the lead's doing.
Right.
You don't feel melody like you feel rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a natural thing. Our heart is not playing a melody; it's playing a rhythm.
That's right.
So, and you can measure it in BPMs,
Mm-hmm.
not beats per minute.
That's
Yeah, literally beats per minute. Yeah.
beats per minute. Yeah.
So our life source is rhythm, no matter who you are. And it's interesting that some people can feel that and some people can't. And some people have complete lack of rhythm. It's so weird to me.
It's very odd for someone who is a musician, because you could literally, I don't know if you've ever done it, but just I'm sure you've done it. You can fucking make music out of anything.
Yeah, of course.
When I was younger, when I was bored, I'd sit there to hum something, and I generally would play drums because obviously it was easier to do than to strum something that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Pencils or something on a desk and just be like kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you make a beat or you start humming a melody in your head kind of thing, and you're like, oh yeah, this is fucking great. If only I had technology when I was younger that the kids have now.
It's funny because in hindsight, when at that moment, again, it's interesting how technology has made everything easier and tenfold harder at the same time. Because back in the day, you just did things. You didn't think about how can I optimize this and make it easier, and you just did it. And you just grind. It's like you're saying, like you would just sit in class, because we were saying that being forced to learn actually sends you the other direction.
Yep.
Well, at least for a lot. I feel like that might be the case for a lot of creative people, though.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of fit into that regimented.
Yeah, because you're in another place.
Yeah.
Especially when you're younger. You're in another place. You don't want to be forced to some bullshit that's going on. Obviously, you want to know the basics, but bullshit.
Yeah, the curriculum that they blanket over the entire society, no matter who you are and what you're good at.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's so many.
You need to know this.
There's so many people that you can't cater to like each individual. You have to literally throw a blanket over everybody, and you all have to learn this, regardless of whether or not you want to or whether or not you're good at it. And by the way, a lot of life skills they don't teach you anyway.
No.
You get out and you learn that, and then no matter what, I mean, whether you're a book smart person or you're a hands-on person, there are lessons you have to learn hands-on, and a lot of the times those are the most effective ways to learn them. The hardest lessons are best learned, and it sticks. The more it hurts, the more it sticks, and the more you'll never forget that lesson.
Yep. You'll remember that shit.
Yep. it's all intertwined. I mean, you can't have that. That's the thing about like dark stuff and depression and all that. Like some of our best artists have come out of that.
I generally try to put my emotion through music. There's been times where I'd make something. It doesn't have to sound amazing, but it almost it puts me in tears sometimes because I can put my emotion to like where that is. I'll be thinking of a certain somebody, and then the music's created, and I'd feel it. And it's like almost uncontrollable. Like I'm like, don't fucking cry. You look like a bitch. Just don't do it. Just
And you're alone, right? Or are you with
no,
people?
there's been a few times we've done it here in the studio.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's funny because I get that because especially with I picked up piano years ago as well, and when I sit at a piano and I have a thought and whatever it is that I'm doing, the melody will just match the thought. It's that feeling. Like I have. It's not a lot that it happens with a bass instrument. Like meaning, if I have like a synth like that's a bunch of layers, like an atmosphere patch or like some type of string, like strings do it a lot. If I have a cello, and the sound of that will trigger emotions a lot more than just like an actual acoustic instrument. I'll never cry playing a drum beat. Let's say that. You know what I mean? It's just not. Drums are just not an emotional instrument as far as I'm concerned. Like you can cry at how good someone is at it. I mean, it could be like, holy shit, this
is amazing.
But it never happened with me. But piano, it goes. I mean, any melody you can break into a piano. It's kind of like acoustic. Like my dad always said, if it's a good song, you can play it on an acoustic. It doesn't matter what genre it is.
That's right.
If you can play it on an acoustic, it's a good song.
You have the creators and you have the listeners, essentially. The people that are not like so like creative savvy, essentially. But if you can make a listener feel, your job's done.
It's kind of like an audible journal. It's like, what am I feeling right now? Let me see if I can put that into an audible form so that when I listen to that, it makes me feel that way again. It doesn't matter if everything is perfectly to the grid.
That's right.
Or everything's on key, like perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
We lost a lot of that. I like perfection where it counts and occasionally like if it sounds like shit, then maybe fucking line it up. You know what I mean? There's a balance. But at the same time, like there's got to be some flaws occasionally. It's okay.
Huge balance.
Yeah.
There's like really bad off timing versus this sounds naturally.
It's tastefully.
It's naturally came into like its timing, not this sounds fucking terrible.
Yeah. Right.
And I know the feeling because I'm just as fucking anal. Like we're basically brothers.
Yeah, I know.
As far as I can tell with that shit.
Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah, that's absolutely true. We can't drink at the same time because there'll be dead air. We can't have dead air. We're gonna be professional. Mm-hmm. This hoodie will come off at some point. It's called a thermofrost, and it's made for like roughing it. Like if you're like a long hiker and you want to do like these massive, it fits in your backpack. You just roll it up.
Huh.
And so I'm gonna throw it in my trunk, and I'll just have it. So you don't need to blow up the big ass mattress.
Right,
it's the size of a person.
No shit.
So
okay.
it's cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's worth having. I mean, because it's made out of good material, so it doesn't leak. And like I said, you can blow it up in less than 5 minutes, just regularly. Like you don't need a pump or anything like that. It's made for hikers and campers, like hardcore.
I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's really cool. And
but
especially
anyway,
since it doesn't deflate too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even these big ass ones, sometimes you wake up on the floor or like your legs, you'll be bent like a V. Your legs will be up at the ceiling and your head's on the ground. You're like, dude.
Like one way or another, like you go camping, you have an air mattress, you blow it up. You fucking wake up and there's some stump or something in your back. You know?
Yeah.
There's always whatever the heaviest part of your body is sinking in.
So this is a perfect example where I was like, I need one of these. And that's why she got one. Cause she remembered she had hers and I was with her. So I didn't have one to borrow. She gave me some cheap one or I didn't have any. I think she like stacked up a bunch of blankets or something. And I had this rock in my tailbone the whole night. It was awful. And I'm like, you know what? Never again. If I don't get one of these, I'm buying one. Because it's small, so you can fit it. It's like, even this room, we wouldn't have to clear everything. We could literally just remove the table and I could just lay there.
Boom.
Yeah. You don't have to, because the air mattresses are great, but the problem too with air mattresses is they can have too much air and you're like on a waterbed almost and you can't get comfortable because it just moves too much.
Yeah, it doesn't have that like
Yeah, it doesn't grab you.
Yeah, because you want something to hold you, like a cloud.
Yeah.
Essentially, is
Not to say that this
the
thing's
idea.
like insane for the side sleeper. Like it's not
Right.
amazing for side sleeping, but it gets the job done.
It's better. It's better than having just. It's better than having like basically sleeping on a flat surface, which
Yeah.
is. I mean, it's not.
I can
terrible
do
to
it.
Stretch on a flat surface.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, for years growing up, I slept on the ground and
Mhm.
a mattress on the ground. I mean, it's been interesting growing up, but
This is your origin story.
here we are.
We're gonna cut this into one of those motivational videos.
But eventually you get older and you're like,
I should get a bed.
I'm gonna spend $1,000 on a bed that's comfortable. And then that's
Yeah.
what ends up happening.
So yeah. Anyway, I worked on an indie movie. It goes way back.
Yeah. Going back to the indie movie.
Well, I think I talked about this with him before, but there's so much crossover between those two worlds, the music and the movie world. More so than any other art, I would say. Like, I mean, everybody likes music as far as I'm concerned. And if you don't, I guess there are very few people that actually do not like any music, which I think is probably a mental disorder at that point. But
I mean, there's a movie called Coco on Disney, but I'm not going to talk about it.
okay. Good.
Or at least it starts up that way, but
Yeah.
continue.
Okay. But yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I was there meeting him because of music, and he was there meeting me because of film. So it's a kind of interesting deal. But we hit it off because we both had the similar interest, and I was kind of helping him out with the vision of it, and he knew what I was kind of going for. So anyway, his thesis was a short movie. It was a sci-fi drama. I won't give anything away because you want to watch it, but the short movie was about 15 to 20 minutes, I think. And he said, "Hey, do you want to do the music for it?" I was like, "Absolutely. I'm not going to turn that down because I love movies and I love music. So let's do this." I'm not as musically inclined as far as melodies and stuff go. Like everything I've ever done is by ear. So I try to just lay it out there, and I'm not thinking of perfection at the time. I always go back and I'll brush it up afterwards. But in the beginning, I try to get it all out right in front of me. So I'm not overthinking things, because as people with anxiety, you tend to overthink everything, and then you plan and plan and plan, and you get nothing done. At the end of the day,
It's a brick wall.
you overplan. So I was trying not to do that, and he was like, "Well, I'm going for this mood," which I like. I like when someone tells me the mood they're going for, not play this in the key of C with the diminished 7 or whatever the hell. I don't even know what that means. You know what I mean? So, but he's like,
Neither do I.
yeah. So, and I went to college for like a year, and I took music theory once, and I hated it. It hurt my head. I haven't had my head hurt that bad since, for when I got a concussion. But before that, second grade, when I went to the Catholic school and I had to learn French, I forgot all of the French. I remember no words. And a lot of my family is French Canadian, but I do not remember any of the language because
in
they
junior
had
high too.
Spanish
I didn't.
or French.
I didn't take any of that. Spanish.
Spanish,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what the fuck was going on. I learned more from working with people than I did in fucking Spanish class.
Yeah.
But not to get sidetracked.
No, that's fine. I mean, like nowadays, I'm interested in learning languages because I can do it on my own because the technology's there. I can
Yeah, exactly.
I can jump on an app and play with it. And,
It's more wanted than forceful.
yeah, and I watch foreign movies from all languages, so like it makes you more interested because then now you can like learn a little section of a language, and then you watch a movie and you're like, oh, I know those words. I recognize 5 of them. Like, 5 words out of a 2-hour movie, but that's more than yesterday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like every time it's cool because then it's wild when you're like, when something foreign's going on and you hear it, like even in Spanish or when I was in Mexico, it's like we were there for a week. And by the end of the week, I was able to at least have like a 5 short minute conversation with somebody. And I was like, oh shit, if I'm here for another week, I got this place so I can unlock.
Yeah.
But then we left. So, but yeah,
And he lost everything.
I lost it. That's the problem, dude. But like, and in the same, there's a parallel there too. Like music is a language and it's universal.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. You can take your music anywhere, and for the most part, they'll be interested at the least.
That's that's a really good point because
I know.
you don't have to have any language. You could literally music reaches out to everybody
It's amazing.
no matter the language, race, whatever. If you feel it, you feel it because it's its own identity.
It doesn't matter what drum the beat is played on. If you hear that rhythm, you can vibe.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter even if you have a good rhythm, because a lot of people love pop music, and a lot of people who listen to pop music all the time are not musicians, but they like the beat or whatever it is. They don't even know necessarily what they're hearing that they like. Yeah. They just know that they like it, and that is so deep.
Yeah, there's something that catches
you. It's a spell, kind of.
And most people that are creating music call it the catch.
I thought that was wait, what?
The catch.
Do they call it that?
Or the hook?
The hook I'm familiar with. So I just learned recently what the hook was, like maybe 7 years ago, which is recent in the time of the universe. 7 years ago, because that's the thing. It depends on the genre. If you grow up with metal, it's a chorus.
It's a chorus. Well, I was going to go back to...
Oh, yeah, we should finish that thought, huh?
Our history, essentially. Our history as individuals. Because we actually, when we first came together, it was through our buddy Kevin, and he was the bassist of Matt's band at the time, and he reached out to me and asked, oh, you want a jam kind of thing? And boom, high school. We've seen each other in like junior high. We didn't really talk because we're both the same way. We're just like, yeah, whatever. And eventually, we were actually on the same bus, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Which goes back to plenty of other
I was frightened to talk to him because he looked like the Columbine shooter.
It's true.
We'll have to pull up the picture side by side. That's a good clip.
There's some crazy like me with my long ass hair. Yeah. Fucking bleached and shit. But yeah, that's kind of like where it started. We started jamming. He was in a band, Black Plague.
Wow. It's a blast from the past right there.
It was like a junior high thing.
A lot of mutual friends were in that band.
Yeah. And then like me and Matt started jamming with Kevin, and then we kind of did our thing, and from there, there was, okay, you shouldn't be here. Okay, we want this person and we want that, blah, blah, blah. You pass through because you're looking for something, and you don't know. You're younger. We were younger. We didn't know. It's kind of like when you're in a younger relationship. You don't know because it's just whatever. But somewhere along the lines, me and Matt, it came down to a decision where we were like, all right, well, we gotta, things just aren't working out. We're gonna take our own turns and do our own thing, which is kind of funny because we ironically kind of ran into all the same shit without actually talking to each other or ever seeing each other over a course of like 10 years.
Yeah, we broke up in high school, and we had differences. That's the thing, fellas, ladies, whoever I'm talking to, dogs, cats, fish, frogs, trees. You never know. So when you think you burnt a bridge, I would recommend not burning. So my philosophy is don't burn bridges unless you are backed into a corner and you have to, because you never know who knows who and how it could benefit you and how you can benefit them. It has to be, I'm sure there's a mutual thing. Like, don't be selfish about it either if you can avoid it. But basically, we didn't talk to each other for 10 years. A lot of that was on my end. I wanted to move on. I think he kind of, at a certain point, you were like, all right, it is what it is. So we kind of split ways for a bit. Probably some stupid juvenile argument about whatever. Who even knows at this point?
Young and dumb.
But 10 years went by, and I had joined a couple of bands, and he had joined a couple of bands, and we were basically doing the same thing parallel to each other. We never ran into each other, oddly enough. But then here we are, 10 years later. High school reunion comes up, and I sent him a message, and I was like, hey, I see you working out, so to avoid my face becoming the Grand Canyon, I'm going to I was like, just in case we run into each other, I just want to let you know that I've been cool. I got no what do you call that? No hard feelings, basically. And I was like, I just wanted to basically give it a new fresh start and go my own way for a bit. And so anyway, we met up a week before that reunion, and then hit it off, basically picked up right where we left off. and it was pretty amazing because there's only maybe a handful of people that you have true chemistry with in a lifetime, and who those people are. And I think we definitely have that. And I don't know what it is. It's kind of like it's like I'm taking a mirror with me to work. We're like the same person through and through. We have our differences, maybe yet to be seen, but
Yeah.
for the most part, the chemistry's there. And I think that only helps push anything that we do forward. And it makes it that much stronger because we're on the same page and we're not afraid to challenge each other. And if one of us has something to say, we'll say it and we'll hash it out and then we move on because that's what you do. And that's the only way to move forward. We've all been in bands where we hold resentments and it only builds and nobody talks to each other, or you have 2 out of 5 guys talking to each other about the other 3. And it's just like, it only ever ends horribly.
Yeah,
so
there's always some
you have to,
fist bashing.
And we said at the very beginning, we were like, look, going into this venture, we're like, if we have any disagreements here and there or whatever, or ideas, positive, I tend to think about the negative because a lot of time that comes up, but anything that you think, just definitely speak up and we'll challenge it or we'll try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least we'll try it. And I think that's important in anything is to at least be open-minded with someone's opinion and whether or not you agree with it right up front. That's a big thing with some of the most successful directors and going back to filmmaking. It's like if an actor has an idea, let them try it. Let them try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But don't just shut people down. If you have the time, if you have a minute, if it's going to cost you 1 extra take, give it a shot. If we're making a song and there's a melody where it's like, I think we should hit this chord at this moment. And right off the bat, I want to shut that down naturally because I don't think that's going to work. Instead, I'll be like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. And let me show you why it won't work. Or I'm wrong. And
all right, it does work.
And it happens. But how could you ever know? Because at the end of the day, it's about the final product. It's about the band, or it's about that song, or it's about that album. It's about that. It's not about you, and it's not about anybody. It's not about any of us. It's about what will benefit the final thing. And I feel like that's a pretty good way to approach most things in life. It's about the end result, really.
Yeah.
And the journey, it'll have its ups and downs, but at the end of the day, it's about will this or will this not benefit what we're going for, the vision of it. And I think you have to take pride and ego out of it as much as possible. We all have it. I think to not have any of it's kind of crazy unless you're like this monk, like sitting on a mountaintop somewhere. And even that will take years of practice to get to that level where you truly are in tune with the universe. But as a normal average person, I think you just have to be open-minded and be open to try things, whether or not you think they're going to work out at the beginning. What your feeling's not always the truth. Your feelings will lie a lot.
Yep.
So I think as long as you're willing to try it at least once.
But if we want to go down that,
it won't kill you.
If you want to go down that spiritual route, we're
gonna have to wrap this up. I'm gonna go over there with the hookah.
Yeah. Well,
it sucks out here.
Yeah. As soon as you take those off, it's just game over.
I'm gonna leave them on, I think.
So I actually, during like essentially what we call the break between me and Matthew, I actually had several dreams over years. We weren't talking, whatever that, and it would be like me and him doing things, like videos, audio. We were doing things together, and it confused me because we were still during this break or whatever, and like we didn't really talk to each other. We didn't really reach out, and I don't know if that's just how this, how the world plane was, where we just had to stay at our stretch. But eventually, over time, it was funny because then we started talking, and I got this little excitement in me, and I was like, oh shit, because I forgot about it, and then it came back to me, and I'm like, oh my God, like, is this real? Like we're fucking, we're talking again, because it's like, okay, so these dreams aren't just dreams. It was something that was telling me something that you will come back together kind of thing, and like you guys are gonna you're gonna do something. whether or not you fail or not, it's not even, it doesn't even really matter because we have a connection.
I can't go that way because all right, hold on. So it's about the journey.
Yeah.
It's not about the success of it. You throw everything at the wall. Hopefully it sticks. You don't know if it will, but it feels right when you're throwing it. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the journey, and I'm having a blast, and I think that'll show in everything that we do. And I definitely think when you're having fun doing something, people resonate with that, and I think that's a huge benefit to everybody.
Absolutely.
I'm not just like whenever we played shows, my thought process was like, I'm not just here for myself to have fun, but well, yeah, I kind of am. Let me take that back. Let me completely reverse on that. I like entertaining people, but I'm there to entertain myself because again, the fun of drums. I love playing drums and it's fun to me. So if the people aren't into it, and it obviously helps. I'm not going to say that it's fun playing shows to one person who's not interested. I'm not going to say that. That's not true. And we've done plenty of those, and any musician can relate, I'm sure. Most of us don't start at the top.
No.
But yeah, I think people resonate with that. And if you're up there having a great time,
you know, we all go through our shit. We all go through life, and in the end, when we come down here in this little space, nothing else matters. All that matters is we're just going to be fucking creative, and we're going to do what we can. And when we find that thing that we know is going to be the working point, from there we will work forward.
There's no shortage of laughs in this room, and there's no shortage of laughs in any room that we've shared. So I'll tell you that. Like it doesn't matter where we're at.
It's very true.
And I think that'll come across, you know. I mean, it's funny because with the movie, with Back to Uncanny Harbor, we'll go back to that because it's a good example of what I enjoy most. I enjoy making visuals come to life with music because I believe it depends. I'm gonna put a little side note on this. Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows of all time, and actually Sopranos as well had no soundtrack. It had music, it had songs, but it didn't have any soundtrack.
Right.
And Breaking Bad nailed that as well, where the most impactful moments they didn't put music because they didn't want any distraction and they wanted it to feel real. On the other side of that, though, music can be a huge game changer for what you're seeing on screen. And I mean, look at any classic movie, you know the Star Wars theme. Even if you haven't seen it, you know the Star Wars theme.
You know what it is, yeah.
And the same goes for Jurassic Park. I mean, we're talking John Williams. Like, he's one of the best of all time as far as themes go. You just know. Indiana Jones, I mean, forget it, dude.
It's
dun,
crazy.
dun, 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 dun. Like, you know when you hear it. Whether or not you've even seen the movie, you know what the music is.
Yeah, you know what
that's
the music
huge.
is.
That's huge. And I think that's, like, some of the best composers of all time are great at that. I mean, but Hans Zimmer, I mean, I know some of his themes, but he's really good at giving you a feeling and not necessarily a memorable melody all the time. It's not always that. Like with certain movies that he does, like someone referred to them as soundscapes or sound worlds or something like that, where it's like it makes you feel. It's not, you're not even like drawn to what notes are being played. It's a world that you're feeling, whether it's like abstract synths and pads and it sounds larger than life. And that's the opposite way, but it also is super impactful. Like you can have a John Williams who is the master of making themes that you never forget. Or you can have a Hans Zimmer who's like, when you're watching it, you just know that he's behind it. You know that he's, even if you don't know, you look it up and you're like, I knew it. When you look it up, you're like, I knew it. You watch Gladiator and you hear the music and you're like, by the way, that's like a John Williams thing for Gladiator and for The Lion King. I mean, those have themes in them that you just know when you hear them. But things like Interstellar or like, I don't know, Inception, like things like that, those are more what he's done. Even The Dark Knight, it's more about the feeling. Basically, where I was going with that entire thing is we made some dark, dark ass music for Uncanny Harbor that was very uncomfortable and very unsettling, but we were laughing the whole time we made that. So it's like, the vibe, the reason why we got there, it's not because we didn't read a bunch of sad stories and get depressed and go in there and start making depressing music, and we didn't go out and try to get into scared mode. We went in, we laughed our asses off, and we said, wow, that sounds freaking scary. Hell yeah. We the scarier and the more disturbing it was, the more we laughed at it. And the more excited we got and the more happy we got, because we're like, yo, dude, that's fucking horrifying. That's perfect. And then he'd be in the other room laying down, and he'd just be like you were saying earlier about stretching on the floor. He'd be laying on the floor like his back would be hurting or whatever because he had run like a 16-hour straight bender or something. And he'd be laying in the other room, and he'd be like, what was that? And I'd play it again. He'd be like, that's fucking sick. We're using that. Throw that in there. That's awesome. Or he'd be like, oh, tweak this or tweak that. But what I love, I think the best director can trust in what you're doing, and they can give you the overall picture, and it's up to you to bring it into focus. They give you the palette. They say, all right, I'm feeling red and blue, and this person had just lost his child in the rain or whatever. And then it's up to you to what does that feel like audibly?
Yeah, feel it.
What does that feel like to me?
Don't be structured. Feel.
It's not about the ego. It's not. I've never set out to be like, all right, I'm gonna make the theme that no one can forget. Because I feel like when you go out with that mindset, you're gonna probably fail.
Yeah, because the chances are you'll probably make it without even realizing you made it, and then it would be what it is. And then it's like, oh, that's what it is now.
When you get it, but whenever I set out to make something specific, it's harder for me than if someone says, all right, I'm looking for hot mashed potatoes, but you don't have any butter in the fridge, so make that sound. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. So like, all right, what does that feel like? All right, so let's say the character loves mashed potatoes. He's ecstatic. He's ready to go. So now we're upbeat and we're feeling good. And then you open the fridge and now we're in minor. And you look at any of those classic like cartoons like Tom and Jerry, for example. It's like some of the most impressive, underappreciated music because it's so intricate.
I loved watching the old classic cartoons because of the music.
The music, yeah.
And especially when there was no audio and it was like very limited like vocal audio. It'd be like, a thing here and there, but it was all music based, and it was like it made the cartoon, and that it's so creative. And that I find it's like it's very art. It is an art for sure in music, because the music can make the art what it is. Because like we talked about in the past, is you can watch a video, but if the audio doesn't sound good, it looks like shit.
The eye is more forgiving than the ear.
That's right.
And so you can watch a movie that doesn't look that great, but if the sound is phenomenal, you're gonna watch it probably all the way through. Mm-hmm. But the other way doesn't really apply. If there's a movie that looks great and the audio sounds like ass, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm all set.
Chances are you're gonna be fucking like, I can't.
I'm all set.
Can't handle this.
It doesn't really
Dialogue's
work.
Shit. Music's crap.
But it's interesting too, because you can listen to, for example, a classical piece that is a certain genre or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is Looney Tunes right here, and everyone's like, yep. You don't even have to have a visual with it. You just know what it is. It'll bring you right to that place. And that the power of music, it's insane. Like, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, the cultural thing. You can go to any country and they'll all have their traditional instruments that you can hear. Like, for example, like, I don't know, you can listen to like a Chinese, like erhu violin or whatever, and you know that it sounds like China. It's the sound of China when you hear it. Mm-hmm. Or you go to India and you hear the sitar or whatever,
mm-hmm.
You know the sound.
Going back to the uncanny. Go for it. When I first watched it, I went to the premiere, and I was like, "Wow!" Like I was blown away because, we haven't really like shared too many mixes or like what we were doing until we did the initial premiere or whatever, and I went there and I listened to it and I was like, because he couldn't show me. So I had to go there and watch it. And I was wow. It was wow. It was a wow factor. It was crazy listening to the audio coming from someone that I have known and how he has built up so much to where he's at now. And now when we're collaborating with shit, it's fucking fantastic that we're at where we're at now. And I think in future endeavors, I think that we have an awesome ability to kind of combine shit together. And I think we can really make some really fucking cool shit.
I think there's a lot of value in us splitting. It's things happen for a reason. I believe that more than ever. As the older you get, the more you realize even the bad stuff, it's good at the end of the day. It depends on how you perceive it. It really does. How you handle the bad things that happen to you, there's two ways to look at it. Woe is me. Everything happens to me. Why me? Mm-hmm. And there's no value in that mindset. You don't gain anything from that. You just keep digging the hole and you don't realize that you're burying yourself alive. It's like, well, you put the shovel in front of me, so I might as well bury myself. Or you could dig a hole somewhere else and look for treasure. You know what I mean? You can. It's not the tool. It's the person using the tool at the end of the day, and that's across the board. It really is. It can make things easier, but look, man, if you have a shovel and you're not digging, and I'm digging with my hands, I'm gonna get wherever I'm going first. It's who's using it.
Yep.
So I think there's value in us splitting for that long period of time because we were able to get separate experiences separately, and now we can come to the table again and combine those experiences, and then he could do something, and then I could disagree with it, but he could say, no, this is why, because I had this experience with my band, and this is why I think we should do it this way, or vice versa. Like I could be doing something, or we can contribute to each other in different ways. Like I could be like, well, last time I tried, you can try that, but last time I did it, and that's the thing. I think there's a lot of value in letting the person do it. Like I said earlier, letting the person do it and realize why it won't work, or have them prove you wrong. That's like the scientific method. It's like, prove me wrong. I want you to, because then we can only benefit from that. We can only get better. You don't get better by being the best at everything.
Yeah, right.
That's not how it works.
No.
And people who think they're the best at everything, that's like a limited time that they're going to stay on that rung of the ladder. Mm-hmm. So I do think that there's a lot more value in, and like people I know who grew up with rough backgrounds are always more interesting, and they're 100% of the time usually more funny. And I think humor is huge, and I love humor, and it's so important. It's just as important as music, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. If you can joke about the darkness in your life, it can only be a good thing. So I think that's a big deal. And people who are the most interesting, or like I said, like Nirvana, you look at Kurt Cobain, he was a mess, a train wreck. His life was horrible, like depression, but he completely changed the industry. He completely turned everything. He killed hair metal and completely moved into grunge. And we had a whole era of great grunge bands. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like, you can't, like the yin yang. I love that. I love the yin yang symbol because it really represents truth. It's unbelievable value. You can't have one without the other. There's a complete balance.
Negative and positive.
You need both.
It's the perfect example of life, because you can't be one more than the other. You need to balance it.
Yeah, it's basic physics. I mean, if you have a force, it's like it's not going to stop until it hits a wall, and then you push back the other way. It's like magnets. I mean, I don't know. I was getting too deep into like this like crazy like philosophical fucking scientific method or whatever. But it's true. I mean, look at anything, man. Like if there's too much of something, then I don't know. I have trouble believing that if everything was all good, that it would stay that way. There's always some resistance that's going to come along, and if you're not ready for it, it's gonna take over. There's the innate need to conquer is in our DNA, mm-hmm. and it doesn't matter. And there's competition. There's competition in the music industry. There's competition in the film industry, and I think as long as you can stay grounded and stay humble enough to see it for what it is and not try too hard to Don't try too hard to just shut everyone down to benefit yourself. Be willing to hear others and be willing to be like, all right, even like I said, if you disagree, be willing to let them try it and they'll prove themselves wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you can't push too much, I feel. If you want someone to do something, or like with film, it's a collaboration 100%. You can't have one person pulling this. There's like, I guess Stanley Kubrick was like that, or James Cameron, where like, you do it my way or the highway type of people. And it's a rarity. Steve Jobs, I guess they say that, like he was like a tyrant, but he got things done. But at the same time, it's like, you can't do that forever. It's not as sustainable to be a tyrant.
Yeah. Especially if there's a group involved.
It might work in the short term.
It
like,
can, yeah.
You can get a couple of things done quicker if you're being an asshole, but those people eventually resent you always. And it's not sustainable. It won't last. Like love will last. Love will last longer than being a dink.
Yeah.
You know?
It all comes down to meeting in the middle, essentially. And you see that middle as being the middle of the yin and yang, going back to the yin and yang, because it's just a perfect example, because it's so simplified, although it's so much more complex than what it actually is, but it's simplified because they connect together.
Yeah, and they form one unity.
And they form one.
Yeah.
So in the end, working, like basically meeting in the middle, because one person will have this opinion, this person will have that opinion. Okay. Instead of just being like, oh no, we're going to do this. It's going to be like, all right, well, let's go to the middle and then put something together. And then in the end, it creates that center between both worlds.
Yeah, and if you have the option, I would say, like, don't be afraid to put a little force into your, like, I'm not saying back down for the sake of meeting in the middle either. Like, you should feel strong about what you feel, but also don't force it on the other person. Allow them to realize, hopefully, that your opinion might have been the way to go.
Oh, yeah.
But be open to being wrong as well, because you might be wrong.
Yep.
And you should be open to that. Like you should be open to try everything if you can. Like, obviously, going back to the film thing, it's like, if we have one take left, then you have to decide, how strong do you actually feel about your opinion? Is it worth this, or are you going to let this one slide, and then maybe in the future you'll change it? That's the thing. Like perfection, it can really be a roadblock if you try to be too perfect. You don't get perfect right away. You gotta fail a few times. So it's like, all right, I have this melody and it needs to be exactly what I want it to be, versus eventually making the next 4 melodies evolve into what you wanted that last one to be. So I got to let this one slide so that the next 4 can be better. Because if you don't allow this one, if you let this one stop you and you're trying to make this one so perfect, you will never release anything. That's the thing.
Yep.
Like, how can anybody look at your catalog if you have no catalog, because you never got that one perfect?
Right.
Versus like, oh, he's so good, but look, he used to not be good, but now he's great. It's like, yeah, that's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. No one's crushing it all the time. Everybody starts somewhere. You can't start at the top. And even if you do start at the top, then how far are you going to go from there? If you're at the top already, eventually someone's going to climb up there and kick you down. That's how it works. So it's like, stay humble, I guess, is the message as much as you can.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like, it definitely comes down to, like, as far as, like, say you have this thing and you're like, this is it. This is what it's going to be. I don't want it to change. This is what it is. And you have the other side that's like, well, what if we change this or this and that? It could come down to, maybe this isn't, it's good, but maybe it's not right for that part.
That's a huge point. Because something is great doesn't mean it's right. And I think that's a huge point. And I think that there's a lot of that where that could be applied to life. If you're like, I need to get this job, or, this job being, like, say in the creative aspect of it, it's like, all right, I need to get this position in this band, or you have an opportunity to write a song for somebody, say, I need to do this. This is the opportunity. And then you audition and they're like, doesn't work. That doesn't mean that you're a bad artist.
Yeah, no.
What that means more often than not is that it didn't work for that. That wasn't the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean, all right, well, that's the end. That's a wrap. Let's put away the guitars and let's call it a day and I'll become a plumber.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. That just means it wasn't your time. Just because you don't get that thing or you don't get that opportunity or that you can apply that across the board. I didn't get that job. I didn't get that girl. I didn't get that opportunity. I want to be friends with that person, but they don't like me. Well, guess what? It's just not meant to be. Yeah. Move on. It doesn't mean it's over.
Exactly.
You don't know what you want. You don't know where you're going to end up.
Yep.
And you can't predict. You can't overly plan it and predict it because life is too random.
And that's just how life works.
It's too random and life is unplanned. So if you try to take the universe and you try to structure it, good luck with that. Unless you're above it all, which none of us are. None of us truly know.
Someone mastered it and you're a fucking alien or whatever it is.
Yeah, don't fuck with that.
It comes down to you don't give up. Learn, obviously, if there's mistakes along the path, you learn from your mistakes. You build from your mistakes. And from there, you build where you are. And then you just can't give up. Absolutely not. There's no giving up. We all go through, everyone, we're all connected. We all have somewhat similar, kind of things. We all have fucked up shit that happens. We all have emotional things that happen. We all have dark times. Sometimes there's darker times that take over you. I've been through a massive amount of depression and anxiety that fucking came out of nowhere. And you have those doubtful mindsets. You have those negative mindsets. You have the most negative things you could ever possibly think about. And you're like, well, I guess, this is it kind of thing. But at the same time, you still have that little voice in your head that's kind of like, no, you got to move forward. Like, you know what? Just keep grinding because there's obviously more to this. There's a reason you're still alive. You're still doing what you're doing. You're still pushing through. You need to continue going. How you do it is more based on how you do it, but you just got to keep going. Because if you give up, then that's it. That's the end. But why give up when you can keep going? I've personally been in a similar situation over the past year where I had this total switch happen, and I was down in the dumps, depressed. I had anxiety. I've never had this much high anxiety in my life until like the past year. I don't know if it had to do with having a child or just, living in this fucking bullshit that we're going through right now with fucking COVID. You know what I mean? Like there's so much bullshit going on where it's just like sometimes you need to push some shit aside. You got to do what you need to do to bring yourself to a comfort level. Because if you're not at that comfort level, you're going to go down a fucking dark, deep hole, but you need to push forward. Up until recently, it became more positive. I became a little more like enthusiastic because, I'd work out shit like that, but it felt like nothing. But before I felt like I was fucking on top of the world kind of thing. But that's where you want to be. You want to feel on top of the world. Obviously, you don't want to feel like you're better than everyone else. No, you want to be in your own, like, I'm at this level. That's where I want to be. Not like I'm better than everybody. That's never
you.
That's
you want to be at your maximum.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. You want to be at your own, like, yes, this feels fucking good. You want to feel good. You want to be at that level. And you're gonna have your downs. You're gonna be in the dumps. It just happens eventually, or some people can probably suffer a little bit more, but you need to be able to stick with it. You need to keep going because it's kind of like as if you were traveling through a path and everything seems pretty easy as you're traveling through this path. And then all of a sudden there's a fucking mountain that you have to climb that seems impossible. And you're climbing it, you're dying in your own, like, you're own physical energy, it's so hard, but you just keep climbing. You just keep climbing. And then eventually it starts getting easier and easier. And then as you keep progressing forward, you're like, you know what? This is fine. I don't feel at my 100%, but you know what? I'm coming back. I'm coming back. And then eventually you start bringing yourself back. And I am bringing myself back to where I was falling down into this dark hole, because there's, like I said, there's just so much shit going on. I don't know what triggered it, but I feel like I'm progressively getting back to where I was. It's kind of like everyone kind of goes through their rough point in life, and you're gonna kind of build back to where you were or more, or push or look for a bigger goal. Even if the goal is something that you don't think you would ever reach, set that goal for something that you want to reach. Because chances are by the time you hit even mid of that goal, you're going to feel fucking fantastic, and you won't even remember that you had such a high goal, because you're already going to be feeling good at that point.
Right. I feel like you were saying about climbing the mountain and all that. There are moments where you get tired of climbing and you might slow down, but if you stop, you'll never reach it. But if you slow down, you take one step instead of two at a time. Yeah. One step at a time instead of two at a time. But it doesn't matter, because you might be going slower, but you're still making progress.
You're still moving forward.
It's the progress. It beats falling backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you could say all day, like, just do it. But that's not what it is, because that's to deny that things are hard.
Right.
And things get hard.
It's too much of a plain word to really represent what is ahead of you,
Mm-hmm.
To just do it. It's more of, continue.
Nike's motto.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just buy our sneakers.
It's forceful. Just do it.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. They mean well. But I guess just realize that there are ruts that you get in, and everyone does. And then it's going to slow you down, but don't let it stop you. Be okay with slowing down, but little progress is better than no progress, I guess, is the point. We're like a little loosey-goosey over here. Hey, I'm Bob. Hey, Peter, I'm Bob's Burgers.
Don't talk to Peter like that.
Do Crumb.
I don't know if I can. I don't know how I do it. Hey, I'm Crumb. I didn't really get into my Crumb. Evidence. Something.
Thanks, Scooby-Doo.
I mean, that's like another hidden talent that we have.
I love doing that.
We after over time, we can sort of kind of have these voiceovers that we can kind of like produce like different characters. But that's something, honestly, that's something that I personally, and I'm sure you have personally, we've just done over time.
Yeah,
and you enjoy it, because you're like you try to become a character that you're not.
Morgan Freeman. Hi. I'm here now. You like that one? It's one of my better ones. Welcome to the podcast. Yeah, so voiceovers, that's another thing I never wanted to be good at it. I just did it because it was fun.
Yeah, it was just,
and I noticed that with like people who are really good at it, impressionists will do it all day, all the time, not because they're fantastic and they know they're the shit, but they want to do it because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I like to bring it down here. Yeah, being Thai like that. Yes. Welcome to the podcast. It's just fun.
You're drunk.
You're drunk, Peter. Fat man. Pack it up, you're drunk. I think one of my first was, I don't even know if I could, like, on the spot it's harder to do, but I used to do Goofy all the time. It was like the first one. Gosh, bud. Yeah, exactly. We have the same voice, so we can do a lot of things.
Like Scoob. Like a Scoob.
Like that was I used to be called Shaggy back in high school. That was like one of my nicknames someone gave me because I had the hair, but it was like the perfect length. It was like that 70s. Like zoinks, like math.
This is like Scoobs, like I don't know.
Welcome to masonry class. We're gonna lay some brick here. It's funny though, because like sometimes you can't really do it unless you have amplification, because some of them are really low. Like the Bob's Burgers ones are really quiet, and
I'm gonna be really low.
And the Morgan Freeman's are similar. Some people can do them loud though. They can like come right out with them. Depends on the voice though.
It kind of like it's like a diaphragm.
Yeah, the position of it.
Yeah,
like where the voice sits.
Why?
I
actually wasn't really good at Joe until like
I brought Joe to the table, which for me has always been Kron because I love Emperor's New Groove. Hey, Spa. I like because I saw Troy Baker do it years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I've never heard an impression of Patrick Warburton, so let me see if I could figure that one out." So we were playing Borderlands, and I was like, "Hey, why don't you come over here and give me a bed pack?" And then he started practicing it. And I think like most times he's better than even I'm at it now. But it's funny.
Well, the more practice, the better.
Because your voice is a little like it could be deeper depending on the way you want to go.
I mean, when I haven't practiced it much, but I'm sure if I practice it more, I could probably get a little better.
It's a lot easier with a microphone.
It's a lot easier. All right, Peter. Come here, Peter.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. It's funny. Like I guess as artists, you want to imitate people anyway. A lot of the time, so it's probably a byproduct. We're like freaking Ditto from Pokemon.
Essentially,
you just want to become whatever we're looking at.
Yeah, you want to become a different character because it's funny to reenact something that's not there. Because then again, it comes back to the humor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. It's number one.
You can make humorous things out of something that it's not.
I feel like for me,
it's hilarious.
At this point, humor is first. Like even before the music, it's gotten so stupid. Like when I was in the band, I used to during rehearsals, we would definitely lose productivity because of the humor would come first. So like I'd be counting off a song and they weren't ready. They'd be tuning. And I'd start counting it off, and then I'd go into it, and then I wouldn't go into it, and then I'd continue to just start counting it off, and I would keep counting it off, and the snowball effect of people laughing because the absurdity of like I keep getting ready to go in, and then I just they're not ready. Let me count it again, and there would just be like 10 minutes of count offs, and we'd never start the song. And Brian loved it. Like I'd make stupid drummer faces, and he would be freaking crying.
I mean, it's humor. I think humor has been a strong part of our lives.
Dude, you kidding me? If that's where the chemistry, that's the anchor.
It is
of where the chemistry is. It's the humor.
It is. It's the humor because it's like no matter the situation, you always got to try to make something humorous out of it, and it makes it better no matter what.
It helps you get through it.
It does because I've always been someone based on humor.
The alternative is be miserable and get through it that way, but who wants to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, as long as you can continue to be productive, whatever it is. I mean, if the moment's miserable, I mean, the least you could do is laugh at how miserable it is. You know, it helps in some fashion to do that.
Exactly.
Because it's all absurd. At the end of the day, we're all organisms living on this rock, just floating. It doesn't make any sense.
And it also helps, like, I know when, like, in my band situation, like, sometimes I'd be down in the slumps. And going back to Bobby, he would do something stupid. Like, he'll just do something. And then I have no choice but to fucking laugh my ass off. And I was like, I fucking love this guy because he's so fucking funny. Like he's a fucking riot.
No choice.
And like he always had some form of humor, and it was awesome because that's what my whole life has been a part of. Like I always would convert something into humorous because it helped me get through. Like, you know, I mean, obviously there's times where you can't, like, you have to be emotional, you have to be mad, but then there's times where you're at that intermediate, and then it's like this fucking someone doing something funny, and you're like, well, I have to laugh now, and then it literally changes the whole mood.
Yeah, I guess don't ever decide I'm not laughing because this is a serious moment.
I'm so upset right now. I'm not gonna laugh.
Don't be too committed to being upset.
Right.
Not to not see the value in the humor of the moment.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I'll be with Ty, like my brother, and I'll lean over and I'll be like, you know, Like they really made his hair kind of fucked up. I don't think he'd be happy with that. Whatever. Yeah, he looks so weird. Like, do you ever see Grandpa with makeup on? That's bizarre.
It's not disrespectful. You know what I mean? It's
No,
not.
of course
You're
not.
not. Obviously, when you're putting that out there, you're not being disrespectful. You're making it more positive than it needs to.
I'm not tap dancing around the funeral home, like trying to make everyone laugh. Like
Exactly.
But if I know someone has a sense of humor and I know that it's not going to break their heart, like I'll lean over. We're all sad. We know that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
When we're all there, we're all sad. So now that we know that, how can we kind of try to spin this?
Exactly.
Because the person we're here to see would like us to be happy. They wouldn't want us to be sad.
And that's like, it's like
Chances
a,
are.
I don't know what the word is, but I'm going to call it an alternative.
Mhm.
And the alternative would be to make the situation better than what it is, kind of thing. Which is absolutely
The
fine.
alternative to being just depressed the whole time.
I think that's absolutely fine. There's no reason. Obviously, you could be emotional, but there's no reason to be in that one thing.
Don't be committed to it.
Because there's always going to be someone who converts it, because everyone's emotional.
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes there's always someone who's there who's going to like make little jokes here and there. Don't be offended by it. That's their way of getting through it.
Yeah, a lot of the time, yeah. If they're not straight out attacking you,
Yeah.
they're being a jerk to you in a moment where you're hurting.
And like when you're the same type of person, you can kind of do the same thing.
Yeah.
You go with it, and you're like you wind up laughing. You're like
It takes a little bit of reading the room, though.
yeah, it does.
We talked about that earlier, like the inability that some people have to read a person or to read a room or to know where you're at. like I was saying, you can crack little jokes here and there with certain people that you know are on the same page or can handle it, but you don't go around yelling. Like you don't do a stand-up routine in front of the coffin. You know what I mean?
Hi, this guy's fucking dead. What's the deal with death?
Like,
why is this makeup on right now?
Yeah.
Hey, you got.
Yeah.
Here lies Grandpa and Dad and Daddy. Peter was a good man. He lived a full life.
Exactly, like you got another personality.
Exactly.
That you're around. And I mean, I personally, and I know Matt's on the same page. It's been we just talked about this
Over
too.
10 years.
We had over 10 years, but we also reconnected within our
3 years maybe?
about 3 years already.
Yeah.
And we know you can kind of read the room. You can read the people. It's kind of like that energy vibe.
Yeah.
Something that I personally feel that isn't throughout everybody. Some people don't know the energy about everybody because they're just, I don't know, they're not there, but we all know the energy around everybody. So you kind of know the feeling. It was stronger in the past than it is right now, but when I walk into a room, I kind of already judge the energy of people. I'm actually, funny as it sounds, I'm very quiet around certain people if I'm just meeting certain people, unless
I'm the same way.
unless we've talked previously, because I need to read you. I need to know what offends you, because in a sense, I'm very like, I don't want to offend you, because I can talk about things that some people are uncomfortable with, and I can laugh about certain things. You know what I mean? So you, like, when you're building, it's kind of like you're building a construction kind of thing. And I find that that's strong, absolutely, with people, because we come off as very quiet, but when you get to know us, we don't shut the fuck up.
No, we don't. No.
Especially when we're together. That's it. That's end game.
It's end game.
Sometimes we're already just going off on each other, and we're just making up jokes here and there, you know?
Yeah. And there's no offense between each other, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, not at all. It just goes out wild. But like if I'm alone in a situation and I'm around a group of people, like say if I'm in someone else's family and I don't know the people, I'm not going to make the same jokes that I would make with people that I know, obviously.
You're not reckless.
We have, if you want to put it on audio terms, we have a limiter.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, brick wall.
We have a brick wall. Where
See,
it's like,
you know what's interesting is too, because I think it just happens when you get to a certain age, but not that we're freaking old men, but we are older than we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You start to look at other people the way that you kind of look at yourself. You get introspective and you start analyzing yourself. And the thing is, like you just said, that we're super quiet when we're not with our tribe.
Mm-hmm.
I guess is a way to put it. But when I meet somebody and they seem kind of standoffish or they seem too quiet, I don't right away assume that they might be an asshole. I think, well, maybe they're just not with their people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just not comfortable yet.
Right. That's actually kind of funny when you think about it, because I've always thought about, like, when I was growing up, I was always like, there was some sort of like age restriction kind of thing where you wouldn't really connect with adults. And then when you hit a certain period in time, it doesn't fucking matter.
I agree.
Because all of a sudden you're connecting with someone who's like way older, but you're on the same standard line, because it's like after you hit a certain age, you're just there. And it doesn't matter because you're just there. You understand, you have the idea, and obviously you can probably learn some things from their experience, but it's like you still have the same filters, you know what I mean? Like there's no like, oh, he's a child, you'll talk about that kind of thing, but then they're more open.
It's like when you go back to high school and you meet your teachers like 10 to 20 years after you graduated, and they become your buddies, and they're not like a figure above you anymore.
Yeah.
And you become
they talk to you like a normal person.
Like a person.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that happens.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And then you realize, oh, wow, people who are in their 80s have just lived a couple of lives, but they've done everything I've done.
Yeah.
Or not. And then you can like tell them, oh, this is what I'm doing. They're like, oh, that's
and
different.
You can have like a standard conversation or joke about something, and they will actually give you the input that they wouldn't if you were younger, because it's like somehow there's a filter, like somehow
I
like
know.
there's a barrier that you haven't reached yet.
It's interesting.
And when you reach that barrier, it doesn't matter anymore. Like let's say, for instance, 18 to 21, maybe 21. Like once you start
like
drinking,
mid-20s maybe, yeah.
Like once you're in your mid-20s, it's like you can be best friends with someone who's fucking 40s, 50s, 60s. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't matter because you literally have this relationship.
Yeah, you stop seeing people as like a hierarchy as much. You stop seeing people as like, well, they're 10 years older than me, so that means that anything they say is true. You know, like when you're a kid, that's kind of how almost it is. It's like, well, don't do that. Why? Because I said so. Because I'm older.
Yeah, because you see this higher, like,
but
this
then
higher authority.
Yeah, but then when you get to like your mid-20s to 30s, you're like, oh, everyone's full of shit. Nobody knows what's going on. We're all trying to figure this shit out.
Yeah, you realize the shit you're going through, people have still been going through.
They still haven't figured it out. And then you realize that...
And sometimes you progress past certain people that are still older than you. And you're like...
You're like, how come all of a sudden you see someone in their 40s who does not have their shit together, and I'm 30 and I got a better handle on things. Right? So they were the ones when you were 10 who would have told you what to do, and you would have had no choice but to listen to them, because in your head you've been brainwashed to say, well, because they're old, they're smart, they're elders.
They know.
Trust the elders, respect the elders. It's like, yeah, to an extent. But how full of shit are these elders we talking about? There might be 2 of them out of 20 that actually have their shit together.
It's like,
you know,
it's like a fucking video game.
It is, dude. It is.
It's like
you
a
level up.
It's a level cap.
You gain. There's a level cap.
There's a level cap, and it's like from there they're just getting experience. But then it's like they're still at that one level that you've hit, and then you're like, oh, what the fuck?
So what happens, right, with the gamers out there? You reach this level cap, and then I buy the DLC. And you didn't.
Right.
So all of a sudden you've been playing for 20 more hours than I have, but I have the DLC, so I'm progressing because my level cap got pushed ahead.
Yep.
So now I'm getting more skills than you because you didn't buy into the freaking the DLC.
Exactly.
You know, that's the life.
They were so stubborn that they didn't want to get past a certain part. They were like, I'm so used to this. And then you're past that, and you're like talking to them, and you're like, well, I mean, you have this.
Yeah, but we're both level 80, but I've been to more dungeons because I do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's how it is. I've noticed that too. Like the more people I meet, it doesn't matter really what the ages are, because I know people who are smarter than me, who are way younger than me. And they're more successful people than me, but everyone's on their own timeline. And that's why, again, you can't compare yourself to everybody, because everyone's on a different path. It doesn't matter when you get there.
Exactly.
I know people who have become famous in their like 60s, and now they're successful. And it took them that long, but hey, that's the path. And now they're successful, but it's what it is. It's like, you can't compare yourself to them. You can't be like, well, these people are more successful now because, you know, they're in their 20s and they're already doing this stuff. And man, I'm really lagging. But what you're doing when you're looking at those people is you're completely not looking at the older people who are just getting there. You're not looking at everybody. You're only looking at the people who are behind in age. And you're like, man, I gotta get my shit together. But some people don't get to that level until they're in their 40s. And a lot of people will tell you that their 40s are the best times of their lives, and the 30s were where they were trying to figure it all out.
Right.
So it depends on who you are. It depends on where you come from. Depends on the circumstances. It's not everyone's the same.
Exactly.
As much as we'd like to think we're all on the same page, we're not. We're just not. Everyone has a different starting point.
It's true.
You know, that's how it goes.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like older people obviously have more experience through life.
If their eyes are open the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, like they've experienced things obviously through life.
Sure.
Some of them progress. Some of them are like, oh, I'm going to stay here kind of
Stuck in their same spiral.
And like, because like technology grows, they were like, how do I use a mouse?
Steven Tyler can freaking come in here and he's more of a rock star than we might ever be. He's been there, done that. He's done crazier shit than we ever will. And he could be our grandfather. Right? Isn't that the craziest shit? It's freaking Ozzy, dude. Ozzy's done every drug you can imagine. And he could walk in here and completely be a badass. And he could be our grandfather. Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't matter your age, dude. My grandfather just died at like 98 or some shit. Mm-hmm. And he's been more of a man 3 times our lifetimes. He fought in World War II. So he was my mom's life. And then you find out that he had lived like 2 lives before he met her. That's crazy.
That's insane.
That's insane.
Imagine seeing that, like listening to that history, you know?
Imagine the way times have changed since he was born in 1922. Holy shit. You want to talk about someone who's seen empires rise and fall, families rise and fall, generations. And I only knew him my lifetime, which was the end of his lifetime.
Right, yeah.
Isn't that nuts? The fact that someone's whole life, you know somebody, and that's just the end of theirs. That's how crazy generations can be, and that's how much age almost doesn't matter in a way. It depends on what you do with the time you're here, I guess. It's kind of what it boils down to, right? Because you can have someone who lives a whole life and doesn't do shit. Yeah, it's just crazy to me, the thought of that. If you break things down to numbers and you realize, so my mom like probably only knew him for maybe 40 or maybe 50 years. I don't know. The thought that if she knew him for 50 years, he was 40. It's like, what? Can you imagine? That's crazy.
Dude, if you think about it 10 years from now, that's where we're going to be.
I know. So imagine 10 years from now, you meet somebody being born who's going to idolize you for their whole life, and then you die. That's if you're lucky, though, because he lived forever. Like a lot of people don't live that old. His wife died like 15 years before he did. So like he had a long time after her.
I think I remember in the past meeting them.
You would have.
Both grandfather and grandmother.
She mistook you for me.
Yes.
But I mean, it's because you see him as this old dude, and it's like, this is nothing on the timeline of his life. This is a sliver. My entire life is a sliver on this man's timeline. And I can only hope to live that long.
Like it's kind of it's interesting because of the timeline he had.
Wild.
Before everything. Like there's so much history.
How different was the 20s?
Could you imagine the history that he would have if he could document it?
He was alive when the 50s was Sinatra. He was before that. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's crazy, dude. He was around when Sinatra was like rising.
That's insane.
That's insane.
That's insane.
So I give that generation a pass as far as technology goes. I don't expect you to learn this shit. But there are people who are on top of it. Like there are people who are still like in their 60s, 70s who are on top of it. But it's up to you whether or not you want to stay up with the times or you're going to let it fall behind you.
Right.
You know? Like, I mean, my sister's only 10 years younger than me and I don't get half the shit she's into. But I don't bother to learn it. Like,
right. Yeah.
I'm not interested.
It's not like you're living in it essentially because it's so different.
I can't relate.
If you think about it, I mean, like, if you think about like our school, high school versus our parents, completely fucking different.
Totally different.
Completely different world.
Yeah.
They had a smoking section.
I know. and we're old enough to remember smoking sections in restaurants.
Yeah.
Over at the Loci.
Yeah.
You walk in and it smells like cigarettes.
Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore.
Nope.
That's not a thing.
That's wild.
You go outside and they have a little fucking cigarette thing. You put your cigarette in, whatever.
All right, guys. Until we have a guest, which will be the next one.
Yep.
We have to.
We're going to finish this off here because when we have a guest, there's going to be more shit going on and I can't wait.
All right. See you.
Goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, we have more content on our channel and other platforms with much more coming soon.
We post a variety of content ranging from the music we produce to the occasional long-form conversation where we chat about anything and everything related to the entertainment industry.